something that Israel, of course, has always disputed. They also dispute that they are breaking international law. But let's talk to my next guest, Matt Duss, who is Executive Vice President at the Centre for International Policy, a foreign affairs think tank. Matt, I'm not sure if you could hear, but a lot of pressure coming from Spain and a few other European countries over the weekend to impose sanctions on Israel. But is there not an issue here that it doesn't seem that any kind of international pressure has any effect on Benjamin Netanyahu?
I mean, thus far, it does seem to be the case. I mean, I do see the pressure growing. I think it's too little. I think it's coming too late, but I do think it does make a difference. I think Netanyahu is much more isolated now than he has been. But ultimately, what it's going to take is for countries in the European Union, particularly countries like the UK, France, and Germany, to cut off arms, to show that it's not just criticism, but they will no longer be facilitating this war. What international experts and scholars have long termed a genocide, what former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert recently wrote was a war of annihilation. So I think this pressure is coming too soon, but I hope it increases. But I will add, ultimately, the United States is the country that I think could really make a difference. The United States could end this war tomorrow simply by cutting off the flow of arms. One phone call from the U.S. president to apply real pressure. This is something the Biden administration failed to do, something that Trump is failing to do.
We've heard from Donald Trump overnight, but on Ukraine and Russia, he has remained silent on what is happening in Gaza. What do you think, Matt, it could take or would take to shift Donald Trump's way of thinking on this conflict?
Well, I think Donald Trump, is very focused on deal making. We saw him, he was in the Middle East just last week, trying to cut deals with various governments and regimes in that region. I think right now he does not seem to think that the continuing catastrophe in Gaza undermines his kind of regional goals. I think once he does realize, and I hope and expect he will realize very soon, that he cannot achieve any of these grand deals he's hoping to make in the region, with the Gaza war still going on. He will need to address it. And I hope he'll realize that very soon. But unfortunately, right now, he does not seem yet to have fully understood that. We have seen some reports of kind of quiet pressure making clear that he wants this war to end sooner rather than later. We've heard things like this before. We frankly heard things like this from the Biden administration. But unless and until the United States is really willing to impose real consequences on Netanyahu, unfortunately, I don't expect to see much change.
Matt, we were just talking to a Spanish MEP there about this UN conference taking place in June next month and the growing call for more countries to recognise a Palestinian state. Would that be more than symbolism, do you think, if that happened? Could that in any way change things?
Well, I think if they recognize the Palestinian state, but also begin to actively engage with it in a bilateral manner, working to open up embassies, these are steps that could matter and could further put pressure on Israel, because I think we have to understand part of the reason why violence has become seen by, unfortunately, many Palestinians as a path to liberation and ending the occupation is because nonviolent diplomatic political means and avenues have been completely closed off to them. We have an effort by the PLO to achieve recognition in the UN. It did achieve recognition as a non-member state. But we had the international community telling the Palestinians for many decades, if you end violence and seek to achieve your liberation and self-determination non-violently, you will be rewarded for this. But Palestinians themselves have seen the opposite. They've seen only more occupation, more repression. And unfortunately, this has made many of them believe that violence is the one remaining option to them. And I think what we need to do is find ways to show that diplomacy and nonviolence can actually produce real results.
Matt, thank you very much for joining us. And let's just show you again.